how's it going everyone? This is the Anime Man. So I was just sitting here in my new house on my new couch with my new glass of Moo Moo titty juice. Oh, that's good titty juice. When all of a sudden a familiar show comes on the TV. The one image I'd seen countless times growing up as a child. The one series that has been seen and heard by more than anything else in the anime and otaku community within the last 20 years. A series that many people will agree is probably the best anime ever made. The one, the only, Fairy Tail. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No one likes that show. I'm not that much of a pleb. So now that I've triggered every Fairy Tail fan and gained myself a good amount of hate just on this video alone, it was actually this show right here. Dragon Ball Z. You know, that one anime that everybody and their fucking mother knows. No, seriously. Go ask your mom. She's probably seen it as well. So they were doing reruns of the original Dragon Ball Z series on TV, and I was pleasantly surprised. It just also happened to be the episode where Perfect Cell just kicked Vegeta's ass, and then Trunk turns into what I can only describe as Guts from Berserk going Super Saiyan. A Berserker Saiyan? Yeah, I can go with that. And if you've seen DBZ before, then you will know that that episode is a great episode. It has high stakes, high tensions, especially if you've been following the saga up until that point. But being the elitist anime analysis douchebag that my haters come to know me for, I've found myself watching this episode in a more negative, critical eye. Like the long-winded transition scenes of two characters death staring at each other for just a bit too long. Or the overexertion of noises that characters go through within the 3 lines of noteworthy dialogue in the episode. Or like the classic trope in the original DBZ franchise where you can clearly see which rock or stone is about to be broken next. That one still cracks me up to this day. But then hear me, maybe these shows aren't as good as I remember them to be. Am I purely enjoying this show because my wild and loose nostalgia boner is trying to cover up all the supposed crap in the episode? Or perhaps the question I should be asking is old anime still good? Now, before anything, let's not gloss over the important word in this question. Good. What defines an anime as good? Well, I'm not going to go too deep into the psyche of this topic because that's another video for another day. But the important thing to remember, at least in this video, is that good is subjective. One person may look at DBZ and say that it is purely a good anime because of its fascinating story with its engaging characters and plot dynamics. While another person may look at DBZ and say that it's good because they're thinking with their little head down there and not with their big head up here. And that, I find, is a rather hard-hitting wall for a lot of anime critics and anime reviewers. In order to fairly judge an older anime with justice, we have to throw away a lot of conventions and add on a lot of new conventions that don't come as naturally to a lot of natural, casual anime fans. First things first, we have to let our nostalgia boners go. The door is right there, motherfucker, off you go. Because if we don't do this, then we end up with what I like to call nostalgia blue balls. That's when someone praises the shit out of an old anime that they grew up watching and is afraid to look at the series in a critical eye because they're afraid that their childhood is gonna explode or something. As much as we don't want to have our childhoods ruined, the one thing that a lot of people have to remember is that it may be a series that molded your childhood, but for a lot of people, that's not the case. Some people grew up watching Astro Boy, while others grew up watching 100. If you're one of those people, I am so sorry. It doesn't matter how much your nostalgia boner thinks it's a good series, you have to look at the series for what it is. And if by the end of the nostalgia-less analysis you still say that it's a relatively good anime, then hey, it's a relatively good anime. Like, who can complain? Except everybody on the internet. Another thing we have to understand when judging an old anime is the time period that it was made in. Think of it like this. Take a group of regular modern anime watchers and put them in a room. On one screen you play One Punch Man, full HD Blu-ray jizz-worthy badass edition. And on the other screen you play Legend of the Galactic Heroes in all of its standard definition glory. Which anime do you think those viewers will say is good? I wouldn't be surprised if almost all of them would say that Saitama kicks Reinhardt in his galactic hero ass. But if you ask any old school or long-time veteran anime viewer, most likely they're not. And this, of course, also depends on that person's taste, but most likely than not, they would say that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is incomparably better. Not because they happen to grow up with Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they've probably seen both old and new anime, but just in general, they would probably say that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is the better anime. Hell, even My Anime List agrees. And I never agree with those fuckers. And the reason why that is the case is because a lot of those viewers are judging the anime based on the time period it was made in. As much as One Punch Man is a visually and narratively brilliantly presented anime, much like a lot of anime in its decade, Legend of the Galactic Heroes is a series that was seen by many as a series that was beyond the time it was made. Everything from its character, story, progression, dynamics, themes, everything about the series was just so impeccably presented, even compared to a lot of other series that followed it. Now again, not everybody will watch these two series and think the exact same thing. Like, fuck, some people might say that Legend of the Galactic Heroes looks like a badly drawn hentai. But I find that more times than not, the timepiece that a certain anime was created truly defines its greatness on a multitude of levels. Take, for example, Serial Experiments Lain. This is a series that I personally deem to be a classic masterpiece that opened up a lot of opportunities to the experimental narrative structure that anime later became to be. Now, what makes SEL brilliant has to do with the time that it was created in. The series tackles themes like virtual reality, identity, existentialism, epistemology, and other big fancy words that will only lead on to me doing a 40-minute analysis video on why this anime is so genius. The important thing to note is that this anime was made in the late 90s, a time period when the internet was hardly the internet. And yet this series was able to take a chaotically beautiful approach on the scariness and the horror and the uncertainty of the thin line between the virtual world and the actual real world. Both of those things being actually balanced between a very thin, sharp sword's edge. If an anime like this came out today, then I'm sure it wouldn't impress a lot of people. Like, yeah, duh. I mean, it's obvious. We're on the internet every day. Yeah, virtual reality is becoming integrated with our own reality. Everyone knows that. Nothing new there, Scooby-Doo. But you have to remember that this series came out before The Matrix did. In fact, The Matrix was actually partially inspired by Serial Experiments Lain. Much like Legend of the Galactic Heroes and other brilliant old school anime, a lot of these anime enthusiasts, I find, don't watch an old anime and compare it to the newer anime just based on a surface level, because it's always a losing proposition. And surprisingly, this can also be said for anime that was made during this very millennium. I'm sure you've all seen or at least heard of this little series right here, Lucky Star. It's one of my all-time favorite slice of life comedy series and is also a favorite for a lot of other fans. But surprisingly, as much as I love this anime and it's one of my favorite slice of life comedies, I don't actually like recommending this series to newcomers of anime. And the reason is because it's old and a lot of newcomers won't understand how good it is. Now hear me out, I don't mean that in the douchebaggy elitist kind of way. Looking at its data, the series was made around 10 years ago. Some of the funniest jokes in Lucky Star have to do with referential callbacks to the anime and otaku culture back in the time that it was created. Like how the main character Konata dresses up as Haruhi when they go to the cosplay cafe, and in the cosplay cafe they all dance the Hare Hare Yukai. And the fact that Konata changed her voice to make it sound like Haruhi, because the inside joke is that Hirano Aya, who voiced Konata, also voiced Suzumiya Haruhi, and therefore it's a funny inside joke. See, me just explaining this joke probably wasn't funny to anyone who's never seen or heard of Suzumiya Haruhi or doesn't know who Hirano Aya is. And so for those who weren't balls deep in the anime community from the mid-2000s and wasn't that invested in anime and that kind of anime culture back then, they'll probably look at these quite hilarious scenes for a lot of those people who were balls deep in the community and therefore deem the series to not be funny, aka not good. But for someone who has been watching anime all their life and who was balls deep in the anime otaku community from the mid-2000s, I can tell you that these jokes are still funny to this day, and that's why I love this show. Also because Konata is my spirit animal. I fucking love you. And I think that's what's so fascinating about comparing old anime to newer anime. It's that just because an anime was made decades before another one, it doesn't necessarily mean it is inferior to the newer anime. In fact, depending on who is making said judgment, the older anime might actually be better than anything that ever followed it. Unfortunately, there are so many people who just easily dismiss older anime because they think it's inferior to the more newer and modern anime with prettier visuals and smoother animation and more more interesting designs and more unique stories. Although that last point is highly debatable. But fail to see the old anime to the time that it was made in. Take, for example, Cowboy Bebop. 3, 2, 1, let's dance. Yes, it may not be in full screen HD. Yes, it might not have the flashy animation and crisp sound design we've come to know. Yes, it might not have the waifu materials that we've come to love and know over the years. Although again, that point is highly debatable. But even after 20 years of it first being released, there are still a large number of people who would consider Cowboy Bebop as one of the best anime series ever made. And mind you, this isn't just coming from the old-time veteran anime viewers. I've had people I introduced anime to only a few years ago or a few months ago who still claim that Cowboy Bebop, even after watching all of this newer anime that had just come out and is representing the modern anime world, that say that Cowboy Bebop is still better than anything that followed it. Even the people who won't claim that Cowboy Bebop is exactly the best anime ever made, there are still a lot of people who consider it great or fantastic or even good. And that's because those kinds of people judge the older anime not for its visuals, its animation, its sound design, its character designs compared to modern anime, but judge it purely at an individual level. And so at an individual level, the answer to the question, is old anime still good? The answer is hell the fuck yeah, dude. It just depends on your preference and whether you have, I guess, the courage to look past the age of said work. And I think that's one of the sad parts about old anime, especially in today's anime community, is that there are too many people, especially the younger audience, that don't even bother giving these older anime a go because they're old. And that doesn't just go for anime. Things like music, art, movies, any long-running and ever-evolving art medium suffers from the exact same problem. These kinds of creative art mediums only ever get their freshest, most outer layer looked and judged upon, while the older layers underneath that have had time to grow its roots out onto its particular art medium just get dismissed and forgotten about like that. Sometimes even falsely judged just by its appearance and age. And I'm not saying in any way that in order to be a true anime fan, you have to go back and watch all of these older anime and say that they are good anime. I'm not saying that you have to go back and watch all of Legend of the Galactic Heroes and say that it's the best anime ever conceived. All I'm saying is that if you are one of those people who call themselves a hardcore anime fan because the people on the internet love to do that, I don't see these very same people actually going out to watch older anime at all. There's a reason why modern anime is able to stand on its own 2 feet and shout out to the world, I am here. It's because these older anime series that these newer anime grew off of have built a solid, unmoving ground for these newcomers to step up onto. Just like the pre-drawn backgrounds of DBZ battle scenes. That ground is not fucking moving at all. But that rock might. So yeah, if you like this video and all the rambling that came out of my mouth, then maybe you should go out and check out some older anime. Maybe you'll end up finding an older anime that might end up being your favorite. And don't worry fam, I got you. You can check out these older anime by perhaps trying out a free trial period of Crunchyroll's premium membership by going over to crunchyroll.com/animeman. Damn, that was a good transition. Shit. So guys, let me know in the comments below, do you think old anime is still good? How do you determine if an older anime is good or better than a modern anime series? And what older or old anime do you personally see as a good, a great, or even the best anime ever made? I want you guys to let me know all that kind of stuff in the comments below. Anyways guys, thanks